Hey YouTube, it is mercifully league turnover today. So Great League, Ultra League, Master League on. So your choice of what you want to do. I did top Great League teams and put rankings this morning, so go check that video out. This one we're going to look at some Ultra League teams and rankings. And in terms of the rankings, nothing has changed from earlier this season. So a couple weeks ago, it was Ultra League and Spring Cup. So the rankings really have not changed. You saw basically a lot of the, I'll just start with like the past seasons, what has not changed. And that is sort of Registeel, Giratina, Poliwrath was up there last season, Cresselia, like Pidgeot, Mandibuzz. These have been pretty top ranked Ultra League Pokemon for a while. And then you get to your legendaries down here, Virizion, Tapu Fini, Cobalion. They've been top for a while now. There has been a couple changes this season. The first and obvious one is for Alligator. So I went over this morning and I did a Beyond the Hype of it. For Great League, I did Beyond the Hype for Ultra League. And it truly justifies its ranking. It is really, really, really strong. And it should not surprise anyone how strong this Pokemon is. You have water typing, which there's so much water in this meta to begin with. You gave it one of the best fast moves in the game with Shadow Claw. It has probably one of the best charge moves in this game in Hydro Cannon. It's got Ice Beam for coverage, which is very, very, very strong in the Ultra League because of Giratinas everywhere. Mixed with a better stat product than like Swampert. So of course it's going to rise in the rankings, right? With just such a dominant fast move and better stat products with still the Hydro Cannon there and a better coverage move for, I don't know if it's better than Earthquake, but it's a pretty good coverage move for the Ultra League. Of course it's going to rise to the top. So yes, Shadow number 2, non-Shadow number 6. It's worth every penny of the investment, unfortunately. So it is one of those where if Hydro Cannon is a community day move, I don't know when the next chance you're going to get this to get Hydro Cannon on. If you are looking to push, I really do think it's probably worth the Hydro Cannon Elite TM investment. If you have a lot of them, right? If you don't have a lot of them, maybe save them for legendaries because this probably will have a chance to get it again. But if you have a bunch of them just sitting there, it's probably worth it. It is a very, very strong Pokemon. Other Pokemon that jumped up were Empoleon. And Empoleon's a really interesting one. I think it's overrated in Great League. I don't think it's super overrated in Ultra League, but I think it's maybe appropriately ranked. The thing with Great League is it suffered from two things. One is it was just too glassy, right? Empoleon was just way, way too glassy in Great League. It's still, compared to your other legendary Pokemon and XL Pokemon in Ultra League, it's still glassy by comparison, but at least you can like take a move, which you could barely do in Great League. So that gives it a little more play. The typing in the Great League, I think, hurts you more than it does in the Ultra League. So the problem with the Great League is Empoleon with the half Steel typing actually hurts a lot because Steel you pick up the fighting weakness, which is a ton of, and you pick up the ground weakness, which is there's a ton of in the Great League. There's still a lot of fighters in the Ultra League, so you can't just write that off. But there's not a ton of ground in the Ultra League. So that is, and then put on all the resistances to pretty much, so there's like, just to look it up, there's probably like 10 resistances. Yeah. Double resist steel, double resist poison, ice, and then single resist water, rock, psychic, normal, flying, fairy, dragon, and bug. Like there's a lot of that in the Ultra League. So being able to resist so much does make you very, very, very strong. So Empoleon, I do think is probably worth a look if you have one built up. But for the most part, like Gallade didn't jump as high just because it is pretty glassy and the grass, like the grass move has way more coverage in the Great League with Mud Boys dominating the meta as opposed to the Ultra League where you have like a lot of dragons, a lot of steels. I mean, yeah, Giratina resists both your grass and your fighting move. A lot of stuff can easily which maybe struggle from a Shadow Gallade to live in the Great League will live in the Ultra League. So it's just not as strong in the Ultra League. So yeah, the rankings for the Ultra League are pretty similar to the past, what you have seen. So I guess I got these out of order because I pulled some from last season. So you're gonna see some Feraligators and Pokemon I did test coming up. But I was looking back through last season too, and I'm like, what still works last season, which also works this season? And this was one of the teams: Poliwrath, Ampharos, Sandslash. So Poliwrath is just, again, extremely strong in this meta. Scald, Icy Wind, counter, just a solid combo for this meta. Ampharos I used as a safe swap on this team, and Ampharos was a really good safe swap. And now with Feraligators everywhere, it's even better to have on your team, right? Where it just has its strength is it has Brutal Swing, which is a great coverage move for both Cresselia and Giratina, which are still top 10 Pokemon, right? So to have that coverage for those top 10 Pokemon and having the electric move for like Feraligator and Poliwrath, which are top 10 ranked, like it just makes sense that electric, like Ampharos in particular, should be sort of on your radar for a Pokemon that could be used, is very strong. And Sandslash is, again, one of those where just has a lot of coverage, right? It just walls Cresselia. It's so spammy. It is double weak to like fighting and fire, so you gotta watch out for a few weaknesses there. But I do think it's like one of the stronger kind of sneaky Pokemon in the meta. So this is one. So that was last season, and I went back to it this season with Ampharos. But this is one for Alligator and Talonflame as well. Basically, this is kind of like a cover your weakness with a safe swap. So Talonflame for Alligator weak to grass. Talonflame will beat the grass. Yes, I am double weak to electric. I'm aware of that. I don't think a ton of people have fully appreciated how strong electric is in this meta right now. Like, you're going to see a lot of these teams with like Talonflame, Pidgeot. I got a couple flyers on these. I got Feraligatr on these. I got Poliwrath on these. Like, electric is probably underrated right now. And the problem is because there's not a lot of good electric Pokemon for the Ultra League, right? There's Ampharos. I've used Togedemaru. It's not, I love it, but it's not great to use. Magnezone's not that good to use, right? So it's really like Ampharos as your main electric. I use Zapdos. I've one Zapdos team coming up, which is half flyer, half electric. So I think electrics have a lot of play in this meta, but there's not a ton of them around. So that's why, yes, you're double weak to electric on this team, but you can kind of work around that. Plus, there's not a ton of them. And then Talonflame, again, like a level 50 Pokemon. I think flyers in this meta are also very, I don't want to call them underrated, but they're very strong in this meta if you haven't been using them. I just think that there's a decent amount of like, not a lot of electric, decent amount of things that you do like neutral against to super effective events. So you're going to see a few of them coming up here as well. Back to back for alligators, right? I think with this one, what did I want to showcase here? Maybe Shadow Machamp, because Shadow Machamp also got a little buff in Cross Chop, right? It got a little buff that kind of went under the radar. And Shadow Machamp is one of those where I always said Shadow Machamp doesn't care about your typings, just because it hits so hard and it comes so fast. So for Alligator Safe Swap, I initially covered like Fairy Weakness in the front, I think, to a certain extent with like Pidgeot, Ninetales. They're not the greatest answers, right? But you would cover it with a Steel realistically if you wanted to. But I think Ninetales, Pidgeot, both had kind of play in this. And then for Alligator Safe Swap, because why not? Here's Zapdos. Zapdos fits the bill of the electric Pokemon that dominates all the waters and the flying Pokemon which dominates all the fightings, right? So super strong Pokemon. Super glassy, gonna get killed by Giratina because you can only throw Drill Peck. Gonna get killed by pretty much every ground Pokemon. So Poliwrath is the answer to that. And then if you're gonna be that glassy on Zapdos, you need something very tanky. I have Licky. You can use Greedent. You can use other sort of bulky, safe swappy type Pokemon. I like Licky because I use the same strategy that I used in my Great League video this morning, is kind of hunting ghost type moves, right? You have Giratina, which is still top, and now you have the Shadow Claw on for Alligator, and you have Trevenants coming back. So having a normal typing that also has Lick and Shadow Ball seems like a good idea to me to use in the Ultra League meta, which is why I used it. Speedboat, another flyer and combo here. Pidgeot, Cobalion, Golisopod. So Pidgeot on the lead. I know if you look at PVPoke, I call it a Sims hero. But Pidgeot on the lead is possibly the most frustrating thing to go against, because the wing attack speed now gets you to Feather Dance and Brave Bird very quickly. So The best case scenario is they like bait you with Feather Dance, but even in that scenario, your attack is down times 2, which means you're not doing much. And then if they hit you again, you're 4 times lower, which means you have to reset and get out, which means you can easily take switch. On the other hand, PGI, you can just go to wing attack, Brave Bird everything in neutral situations for 50 to 70% damage, and then go into a Golisopod here as a safe swap, right? So it's a really, really, really versatile, strong Pokemon. Obviously, you can have problems against steals and stuff. So Cobalion will deal with a lot of the steals as the fighter / steal, and Golisopod is a pretty good safe swap to deal with just generally a lot of stuff. Again, I think it's probably like a very, very top safe swap. This is one from the past season as well. Poliwrath, Weezing, and Skeledirge. So Weezing was... I finally built up Weezing after a long, long time just to test it out. It's pretty strong, right? Because you have a lot of fighters, a lot of dragons, which you can use Super Effect against all those. You got the Brutal Swings for like Cresselia. So it has a lot of coverage, decent bulk, pretty spammy. So I liked it. Skeledirge is also one of those where it's like one of the best starter Pokemon to not have its starter community move I've ever seen. It's just the Incinerate got buffed, and it really, really, really helped this Pokemon. And then Disarming Voice and Shadow Ball, great. Fairy and Ghost, like that's a great coverage move for all the Darks and Psychics and Dragons and Ghosts. Like great coverage, which makes it so strong in the Great League and the Ultra League. And then I did not expect Poliwrath on so many teams, but I'm not surprised. So Giratina, Poliwrath, Stunfisk, you are double weak to Fairies. Giratina can kind of deal with anything, quite honestly. Like even if you've played with Giratina against an Ice or a Dragon, or a Fairy, you can the amount of damage you do is way more than you should. So Giratina is safe, Poliwrath is safe, Stunfisk is actually kind of safe too. But Stunfisk obviously to deal with the Fairy weaknesses that you have on the front. So basically like 3 what I call safe, somewhat bulky Pokemon all around here for the Great League, for the Ultra League. And yes, Poliwrath is on a lot of teams. A couple of those were last season, a couple of these this season. It is a top. It's what was it? What did I say? It was the 3rd ranked Pokemon, 4th ranked Pokemon, somewhere there. It is truly that strong. Just having one of the best fast moves in the game, Icy Wind, which lowers your opponent's attack, plus great coverage for Giratina, and like your weaknesses, right? You're weak to flying. Cover that weakness. Giratina has the Ghost Will resist counter. You have this Icy Wind for that. Like it just great coverage, and then Scald. 50% of the time seems like 80% of the time, a lot of time, that it lowers your opponent's attack as well, plus does more damage than Icy Wind. So it's really just a strong Pokemon to use. So that is basically it. I'll probably play my guess is 80% Great League this week, maybe 20% Ultra League. We'll see how I feel, but I feel like I'll be pretty Great League dominated here. But let me know if there's a Great League or Ultra League team that I should test out. And that is it. So hit the subscribe button if you're new. I appreciate watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.